record show that all council members are present with the exception of Councilmember Tibbetts and Mayor Coursey.
Thank you. And Mayor Coursey is in Southern California and will join us again next week. Councilmember Tibbetts is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and will join us a couple of weeks from now. We had no closed session, no study session, no proclamations. Mr. McGlynn.
So yes, we got a very brief fire recovery and rebuild update this evening. We were going to be, Cal OES was going to come, but they have had several situations across the state that they're wrestling with. Our understanding is they're going to attempt to come to next week's meeting, but we do have a update from Mr. Lowenthal regarding some matters involving insurance.
Good evening. Last week, members of the debris task force for both the city and county met with the ad hoc committee, represented both the board of supervisors and county city council. At that meeting, the two things that came up that were primarily addressed were the over excavation concerns, which as the city manager indicated will be addressed by Cal OES next week, and the second part was the insurance. So following that meeting, another follow-up meeting was held by city staff and county staff early, would that be yesterday? And we will be moving forward with another round of communication strategies and plans to do outreach to the survivors, letting them know how they can submit checks if they receive them and what the next steps will be. So we are actively moving forward with that and still waiting the final costs and final reports from Cal OES, FEMA, and Army Corps. But regardless, we understand that people are continuing to ask for that information, and so we will move forward with another round of outreach.
Councilor, are there any questions? Great. We seem to have lost our city manager. Is that it for our fire recovery? Okay. We'll move on then. Thank you so much. City attorney and city manager reports.
Do it reverse order this evening. I did want to report out to council that last week the city did file its complaint against PG&E. That complaint seeks damages against PG&E to reimburse the city for its losses that were suffered in the wildfires last October. As you know, CAL FIRE has found PG&E responsible for the Nuns fire, and we do believe that PG&E will also be found to be responsible for the Tubbs fire as well. The city's complaint seeks compensation for the full scope of the city's economic losses, including the cost of response and recovery, as well as lost revenues. In addition, the lawsuit does provide us an avenue by which we can work with others, including other public agencies, in an effort to compel PG&E to implement additional safety measures to help ensure that this kind of a disaster does not happen again in the future, either to us or to anyone else in California. Our complaint was filed here in Sonoma County, but it will be coordinated with the, consolidated with the coordinated proceedings that are currently underway in Superior Court in San Francisco. So we will join that litigation. That litigation is ongoing, and it is at the earliest stages of discovery. Discovery is just getting underway, so we're about to jump into that as well. I'm happy to answer questions, and I will certainly we will keep the council apprised of any significant developments in that litigation.
Any questions? Could you also talk a little bit about the update on Bodine? I think we all saw an article on what happened late last week, but if you could walk us through it a little bit. Sure,
I'm happy to do that. As you know, the court last week issued a restraining order against the city against further enforcement on a very narrow issue that was still lingering out there on some code enforcement proceedings with respect to particular improvements at the Bodine site. What was at issue was the Bodine's construction of a bag house and a movement of relocation of some storage tanks and storage structures back in 2005, 2007. Bodine had failed to get any permits, building permits or zoning permits for that work, again, back in 2005, 2007. Code enforcement issued a notice of violation and brought a proceeding that was heard about a little more than a year ago before an administrative law judge. At issue, there were 14 violations, but on the eve of that hearing, the code enforcement officer did realize that the zoning violation had cited to the wrong code sections. The hearing went forward on all of the building code violations. So 12 building code violations, that's building, electric, plumbing, mechanical permits that had not been obtained. Also failure to get design review. So all those 13 violations went forward. The hearing officer found all violations to be true and ordered that Bodine come into compliance, get all those permits within 30 days, and pay fines. I don't recall the exact amount of the fines, but it was about $70,000 of fines. The staff had pulled the claim the alleged violation of a failure to get a conditional use permit because the wrong code sections has been cited. Under our city code, he was not able to substitute the correct citations at the date of the hearing. Our code requires that any property owner, for the property owner's benefit, have at least 30 days notice of a violation and of the particular code sections that are violated. And that gives the property owner the opportunity to voluntarily come into compliance. So from our perspective, the code enforcement officer did exactly what he should have done. He pulled that and took that onto a separate track. Unfortunately, Superior Court Judge Renee Chateau did not agree and felt that violation should have gone forward in front of the administrative law judge, again, about a year ago or so. So the judge said we can no longer bring that particular violation. So Bodine will now move forward. They have submitted their applications for the building permits. Those building permits and our review and inspections for those building permits will ensure safety of those structures. But what we will not be able to do is require them to get the minor conditional use permit that we believe they needed under the code. So that is really what that action was about. Again, a very narrow issue. It does not impact other issues that may be going on at that site, such as the noise issues.
So I think there's the noise issues and then there's still the hours issue as well.
And hours of operation as well.
Can you give the council a little bit of a timeline on what we should expect along those two issues?
I thought you were. We are just about done with our review of the full administrative record. That's going back several decades on the hours of operation, and we would be expecting to come back to you probably in late August with a report on what we found with respect to the scope of the legal nonconforming use and how that relates to hours of operation. As to the noise, as you may recall, the noise violations were on a separate track even as of the hearing before the administrative hearing officer on the building and zoning code violations. That hearing did not, there was supposed to be a separate hearing about a month later on the noise violations. That hearing did not take place because we were not able to get the readings, the nighttime readings that we were waiting for. And this has all been in agreement with Bodine that that's on a separate track. My understanding, although I have to say I have not checked with code enforcement in the last month or so, but the last time I checked, there were night operations were not going on, or at least not going on.
So as we'll get code to update the council on exactly where we sit on this particular item, since I can't go much further because it's a non-agendized question. So we'll get the council an update on this particular item. I don't want my colleague to struggle through what code's doing. We will
Yes,
let you know.
We'll come back.
Okay. Yes. Any questions, council?
Thank you.
All right, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, the Office of Community Engagement's Violence Prevention Partnership is pleased to announce the City of Santa Rosa has been recommended for funding through the Board of State and Community Corrections, California Violence and Intervention Program through August 2020. This is a $500,000 grant, which will enhance the Guiding People Successfully referral program, a multidisciplinary effort of local government, law enforcement, faith, community, schools and businesses, and community-based organizations collaborating to provide trauma-informed wraparound services to address the root causes of violence in our community. The partnership will use a portion of this funding for pass-through grants to 2 local not-for-profits that will support our youth and families. Those not-for-profits are Social Advocates for Youth and LifeWorks of Sonoma County. They will provide work readiness and in-home mental health counseling support for our community's vulnerable populations.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to statements of abstention. Any from the council? Mayors and council members' reports. Who wants to start? Councilmember Combs.
Thank you. The meetings of the CASA Committee to House the Bay Area have continued, and I have a document that I will be sharing that includes the voting information on various topics by the Technical Advisory Committee. It also includes a survey that was taken of Bay Area electeds and staff, and there are some interesting charts within the document that show electeds' responses and staff responses. Very often they're similar. Sometimes they diverge. So it's worth looking at what the results of the survey are. Sonoma County did an excellent job in having electeds and staff both respond within the context of how many people there are in Sonoma County versus, for example, some of the other counties. We had a phenomenal response rate. So I appreciate my colleagues filling out the surveys. I should also let you know that one of the activities that will happen with CASA is there will be CASA is attempting to make a compact or negotiate a bargain or grand bargain, they're calling it, a deal among a variety of groups, stakeholders. Municipalities are one of several stakeholders that are at that table. Because I was appointed to ABAG RPC by the mayors and council members, I will be reporting back to the mayors and council members. I continue to report to you of what I'm doing, but I want to be clear that as the negotiations start, it will be going to mayors and council members with the reports about those negotiations primarily. Guidance is always welcome, but I will expect to receive most of my guidance through that entity. Just wanted to be clear about that, and also to keep you posted on what's going on. I'll leave one copy in the council room, and I'll provide a copy to the city manager so that everyone can read these. I found the survey to be fascinating. I was really surprised at some of the results. So have a good read.
Thank you, council member. I have 2 quick things. One was from last Thursday. We had our monthly long-term finance subcommittee where we dealt again with the real property transfer tax. I think the council will hear more about this at our goal setting later this week. I also stopped by the 43rd annual senior hockey tournament at the Snoopy Ice Arena. It's an annual event, and if you haven't had a chance to check it out, it is some entertaining hockey, and it brings in about $3.3 million worth of economic activity as people come from all over North America. I think there were 13 Canadian teams that showed up to play this year, and really just was a good time and a good way to get out of the heat over the weekend. With that, we've got...
I'm sorry, I failed to mention that I'm making an appointment to the Board of Community Services that I've selected Pamela Van Helsing to serve on that board. She is active in the Coffee Strong neighborhood, and since they have a park coming up, I thought it might be a good idea for her to know what was going on there. And I'll get you the spelling of the last name, which I don't have with me right now. Just wanted to be sure I did that. And to confirm, on Thursday, do we have the opportunity to mention things that aren't necessarily, I'm concerned that I will want to be discussing, I can't talk to you, I will want to be discussing the Greenway campaign on Thursday. Will we have any difficulty in bringing up topics at that meeting?
So I can respond to the topic conversation. You should not have any difficulty bringing up topics.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. So approval of minutes, we have minutes on file from April 3rd, 10th, and 17th. I'll entertain, are there any changes from the council members for those 3 sets of minutes?
There are probably some abstentions. There were some council members that were not here. I'm not sure. I reviewed them for myself, but I didn't track other council members. And I think, Vice Mayor, there was one date that you were not here. There were a couple of them.
It may be that we need to vote because we can't pass them without it.
Yeah, Councilmember Combs, you were absent for the 3rd.
Were there any doubles? Do we have to?
Councilmember Combs joined the meeting through teleconference on April 3rd.
I called in the 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have to recuse myself as well from the 10th. Although I believe I was only gone for the closed session in that one. For the 17th, Councilmember Sweathelm was absent. So is it possible for us to adopt the minutes as presented with Councilmember Combs abstaining from the 3rd, myself from the 10th, and Councilmember Sweathelm for the 17th?
I was here on the 17th. I just arrived 20 minutes after the start of the closed session.
Okay.
I was there for the remainder of the meeting.
I don't think I need to abstain from the 3rd since I was here by teleconference.
Okay.
That's correct. That's correct.
Great. All right, then we will show those as adopted. Mr. McGlynn, consent.
11.1, motion acceptance of 2016-17 comprehensive annual financial report, housing authority financial report, and single audit report. 11.2, resolution granting vehicle tow franchises and authorizing tow agreements with various tow operators. 11.3, resolution opposing the separation of children and families at the U.S.-Mexico border. That's it.
And that's it. Thank you, Mr. McGlynn. I'm going to pull item 11.3 for discussion. Council, do you have any questions on items 11.1 or 11.2? No? All right. Councilmember Sawyer.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll move consent items 11.1, 11.2, and wait for the reading.
Your votes?
I'm sorry, I have an appointment to talk with staff about 11.1, so I'm going to abstain until after I've had this conversation with staff, because I do have some questions, but I think I can deal with it another way.
Okay. Your votes, please. So 11.1 and 11.2 pass 4-0-1 with Councilmember Combs abstaining. Mr. McGlynn, item 11.3.
It's already been introduced, so you can just.
I could abstain. That was supposed to be abstain. Okay.
Yep.
It was a no on the.
It looked like
It showed a no, yeah.
I should abstain on my records here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. For 11.3, I pulled the item because looking at the resolution in the fourth paragraph, it reads, whereas this federal directive has resulted in the separation of children from their parents and has channeled them into foster care, resulting in suffering and emotional trauma. I did not think foster care was the appropriate term for what we've seen as the detention centers down at the border. And so I was going to ask my colleagues if we could change that from foster care to internment camps or detention center or something that accurately reflects children in cages on cement floors.
I think that detention centers would be appropriate for that.
Okay, I do have one card on this, and I know a couple council members might want to speak afterwards, but I'll go to public comment really fast, and that's Peter Chernoff.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I think FEMA concentration camps is the term most people are familiar with. And there's already 3 million people in them unofficially. So this resolution seeks to purport keeping families together by your report. As 100,000 children go missing every year, the root cause of all violence be spiritual deception, be clear. Also, as CPS separates children from parents nationwide, you cannot continue serving two masters. One must pick a side, and no amount of mental health counseling will truly assist. It's all about spirit and how to be sun-kissed. So I'm going to share the fact that we have unknowingly given up our ultimate spiritual strength, aka free will, as we choose to serve two masters by maintaining the meat grinder, the slaughterhouse, and the oil industries, bleeding the lifeblood of our earth, which gives them, those who are doing this to us, maintaining all wars on so many levels, the authority to maintain these forever wars. So maybe it's time for us to become the salt of the earth. For the power almighty creator to wipe away the tears, we as spirit warriors be removing all of their fears. The fears of all sentience, whether hunted or farmed, be filling great strength the promised mission so charmed. The trees of the forest being singing with sorrow, shall their fortunes as ours be ignored to the morrow? How many still waiting for the spiritual new birth, requiring that we be the salt of the earth? So for freedom, liberty, freedom, and justice we've yearned as we continue to ignore the true cause of war and the corporate store, as massive scorching fires be burned. As homeless ranks swell, we still ignore the cracked Liberty Bell. Where have we been, be it heaven or hell? With the media that tells us where and when to look, and a seriously altered good book, true faith and love long have we forsook. As radiating multi-purpose MK cell towers assault, where be the hardcore common sense as displayed by John Galt? To be free of these insanities, we must free the sentience first. So too the industry of oil to freeze frame the system so cursed. I am Peter as I am the seer, everything for the better as we set free Leonard Peltier. The 40-day freedom strike prophecy as our spiritual resolution, our freeing this brother, so to freeze the U.S. Constitution, opening the doors unto the promised land, accepting, embracing this almighty command as the time be at hand. So abide to embrace with a smile on your face, becoming, overcoming the cure.
Thank you, Peter. Mr. Sawyer.
Move item 11 or consider item 11.3 and wait for the reading.
Second.
And as a clarifying point with the proposed change.
With including the proposed changes, yes.
Second.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I just wanted to thank my colleagues for supporting both the resolution and the letter. And I think it would be appropriate for us to have those translated into Spanish so that they can be put out into our community so that everybody's aware of what we have done.
Have it translated.
Yes, absolutely. Council, your votes. And that passes unanimously. So Council, we have a little bit of a different procedure that we're going to do tonight. We have 2 time certain agenda items. One is our standing public comment, and then one is the public hearing on the creation of the downtown district. We need to give staff an opportunity to count the ballots once we open the public hearing and hear the testimony on it. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a recess until 5 o'clock. We will come back with public comment, and then we'll take item 14.1 out of turn, allow staff to begin to tabulate the votes while we do item 13.1, and then we'll close the meeting with the announcement of what that vote total was. So we will come back at 5 o'clock. I'll bring us back. Welcome back, everybody. An announcement that we made right before we went to recess that I'll repeat here is that we are going to start with public comment here at 5 o'clock, and then we are going to take our item 14.1 public hearing out of order to allow staff to tabulate the ballots of that while we do item 13.1. So with that, we'll go to public comment. Peter Chernoff. But he'll be followed by Paul McGavin.
All right, good afternoon. Today is an anniversary of sorts. From 1935, the Sebastopol agricultural community did a general strike. And since you brought up the Snoopy hockey deal, I figured, well, I'm going to go ahead and share Snoopy, World War II flying ace in France who sought romance. So too he quaffed many root beers before returning home to Cheers. American vets were heroes. Yes, boss walkers. Please remember, we also had the heroic Navajo code talkers. Such intense energy and camaraderie needed today so that Operation Overcomer claims the promised land. Yes, I say, the prophetic 40-day freedom strike attains the promise as we like by delivering justice like never before, freeing Peltier, the U.S. Constitution, and Almighty's children, freeze framing the corporate store of war. The authority be mine to say as I do, is the authority be ours and yours to make it come true. Spirit rainbow warriors of the Peanuts Gang clan. All strength and love from on high I command, that highness residing in your heart, rosebud, rosebud, blossom start. For the same cabal that took out JFK for printing American currency has stolen their power from our liberty. So I'll share to the powerful women that are listening, thinking long, thinking wrong, standing rock, and this includes the powerful women of Oaxaca that have shown us what strikes can do. Many of you have been chosen and some have been arisen, some ready yet waiting in the wings, hear what Spirit sings. Speaking to women of true power, Turtle Island awaits this moment, this hour. Time be of essence, disallow all acquiescence. For I have heard the trees of the forest crying with the same terror and fear, sentience, cry out before the blade of slaughterhouse dying. There have been women of note who have sought to rock the boat. Some have worked to the bone. What be required can never be done alone. And the very psychologies that have kept them apart must be overwhelmed by fierce love in the heart, uniting together upon standing rock. The prophetic action freeze frames Mammon's clock. And California be the most powerful state on the planet, freed of all illusions. These rainbow women warriors be standing upon granite. I see Pearl Means with many Native American women warriors leading by spirit. I see Elaine Brown and Angela Davis of the Black Panthers more fully prepared to seize the corporate store. So take heed, London Breed, and be counted like Libby Schaff and Chief Kirkpatrick upon war horses mounted. I see Aaron Brockovich and Cynthia McKinney, neither one a corporate ninny. And the powerful women veterans, law enforcement, and patriots as well. Only by prophecy do we weld that cracked Liberty Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chernoff. Paul McGavin. And he'll be followed by Victor Puterbach.
Thank you, City Council, for the time to speak today. I want to make sure that we learn lessons from every place. And one lesson we can learn is from the novel of Tale of Two Cities, the Dickens classic from 1859, set in London and Paris before and during the French Revolution. Quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. No one should forget Sidney Carton's heroic decision to sacrifice his own life to save that of the falsely accused Darnay. There are parallels today in a modern tale of two cities, this time set in Sonoma County. The two cities are Petaluma and Santa Rosa. That makes Roanoke Park our English Channel. Fresh off the victory of a veto of California Senate Bill 649, the state's small cell bill, the terms of which stretched credulity, experts from MyStreetMyChoice.com, myself, Attorney Harry Lehman, and Dr. Trevor Marshall in late January and early February of 2018 met with both city staffs from Santa Rosa and Petaluma, asking each to take steps to protect their residents from an invading force. That would be Verizon. One city staff listened. The other collectively stuck their heads in the sand. Petaluma city staff listened. Santa Rosa city staff did not. And unfortunately, they are still not listening. Just last night, the Petaluma City Council passed an ordinance to modernize their municipal wireless code and their zoning ordinance to protect its residents from the safety, privacy, and property value hazards that so-called small cell towers bring to neighborhoods. What did Petaluma City Council pass? Number 1, prohibited small cell installation on city-owned light poles and other city-owned street furniture forever. 2, allowed small cells on PG and utility poles only in mixed-use commercial and industrial zones, not in residential zones. Number 3, established a 500-foot setback from a so-called small cell to any residence in any zone. Number 4, set a 1,500-foot setback between any 2 small cells from any wireless carrier. This solves the problem of quote-unquote infill and leaves most utility poles without a small cell. Understand? You allow one here, you let 4 poles go, you put another one here, nobody gets to put them in between. Very smart idea. You should do that once every 3,000 feet because that's what Santa Rosa, that's what Verizon CEO says they need for their distances. So what is Santa Rosa doing? Santa Rosa has the same information and the same opportunities, but they're not doing them. Instead, we fight over California Public Records Act requests. When we try to get the information about what's going on for the status of these small cells, Santa Rosa hides the information. They do very poor jobs of putting records together. If they don't like the fact they're not providing them, they call the police. This is ridiculous. You need to listen to the people who are trying to protect the residents and actually protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGavin. Mr. Peterbach. And he'll be followed by Daniel Reif.
I'm from over Apollo Drive. I didn't get there overnight. I had a good job. My mom needed a triple bypass. All right, she had that. She needs somebody to take care of her. I quit my job to take care of her. But living in a rate-controlled environment, they wanted to tell her when she could have company, when she couldn't have company. I told her that wasn't right. You stand up to them, they kick you out. I was cleaning the carpet, walked out of my bedroom to have 2 Santa Rosa Police Department people tell me I had 5 minutes to get my stuff and get out. I was like, what? No explanation? To date, I still have no explanation why. She passed away 2 years ago, all right? I still haven't gotten any of her stuff out of there. They won't let me in there to get her stuff out of there because my brother still lives there. But I'm over on Apollo now. Mr. Home Builder guy wants to call people and call the radio and say how his employees feel threatened at night. That's funny because his business closed down at 5 o'clock. So at nighttime, what is employees still doing there after 5 o'clock? Who knows what? Now, he wants to be a big hero guy about building all these little hut things for the people that were fire victims. That's fine, granted. But now why not build those for the homeless? The city, or excuse me, we as taxpayers own property that could be used for these kind of things. They could build these little huts, put people in them, be heroes. How do we do that? You get all your volunteer work hours. I don't know how many times I've done volunteer work out picking up garbage out of other people's yards when I would have been there doing what I like to do. How many contractors, how many construction workers are doing volunteer work right now that wouldn't mind doing that kind of stuff? There's your labor. There's no labor charge. You gotta use material charges, okay, fine. You rent those places out on by how much money the people make. That way you get your money back, you take care of the permits and everything else, any other stuff that you be taken care of. What's wrong with that? Now you're threatening to kick us out over there. Where do we go? I mean, I've worked my whole life, paid all my taxes, did everything all legal. Where am I supposed to go now? You guys had, I came here a couple months ago, asked the same question. You know what your response was? The next day, you guys came and told all our vehicles. You know, what's that ain't a response. That is not helping the matter at all. It's making more people pissed off more and making people do what they don't want to do. Now, where can we go? I ask you guys again, where can we go? I'm sure after this meeting tomorrow, the police department will be there to tell everybody off. That's why you got that little tow contract thing on here. You know, we ain't stupid, we ain't dumb. I have one of those education things too, you know. But I'm asking you, where do we go? You guys keep saying they're gonna help the homeless problem, but you don't help the homeless problem, you're making it worse. I mean, these little huts for people to move into, I mean, sure the city owns property everywhere. What about all these buildings you guys own? What about the hospital for housing? All kinds of things. The old general hospital, you guys do housing for that now. It's a shelter. Where do we go? You know, I'm still asking you guys, where do we go? Everybody keeps asking, where do we go? You guys keep this going. You know, we all pay our taxes, where's our money going to? Besides The fire victims, sorry to hear that. But now what about ours, the other victims?
Thank you, Mr. Peterbaugh. Mr. Reif, and he'll be followed by Geraldine Mejia. Is Daniel here? Oh, rare.
Hi, my name's Dan Rye. I'm a 6-year vet, but that has nothing to do with being homeless right now. I'm like the other man says, where do we go? I've been told every time that I've been evicted out of my house that my dad built in 1960 in the same place in Two Rock. I lost the mortgage, and after that, I had no place to go except on the street. And every time I sat down long enough to think about something, a cop comes by and says, no, you gotta move. No, you can't stay here. No, this ain't right. This ain't good enough for you. You're not good enough for us. Well, I spent my 6 years in the military. Tell you what, the illegals down at the border are being treated better than this. I just demand some kind of respect and some place to go.
Thank you, sir. Geraldine, followed by Donna Marie Palomares.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Mejia. I'm 72 years old, disabled. I have a disabled son, and he's 44 now. He had surgery at 16, so I take care of him. He was in the car with me. We're homeless. We lost our apartment, and we had a lot of friends there, and the manager, it's all her fault. She's got a Class 8 suit going against her. But besides that, my question is too, where do we go? I'm born and raised here. I have 5 generations here. And I've never, ever been homeless in my life. Always had a home. It's really discouraging. I mean, I'm fighting back tears, but I cry every night. I'm scared out there. I don't have my son with me now. Where do we go without getting harassed and go two more streets over? You know, 2 more streets over, they're gonna call the cops on me. I'm sitting there just, my 2 little dogs, we're not bothering anybody in the neighborhood. I'm born and raised here, and you may as well shove me down in the sewer with the rats. That's how I feel. We have no rights. I feel we have no rights. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Donna Marie Palomares, followed by Victoria Yanes.
I'm Victoria Yanes, speaking for Donna Marie Palomares because she was stricken with stage fright. She's sitting right here, and she wants to ask the city of Santa Rosa if you have any property that her trailer could be put on, because she's just a step away from homelessness without her trailer, her RV. Now, I'm Victoria Yanes, Homeless Action ! And I'm here to speak to the council to please have empathy. Please try to effectuate the emergency housing homeless declaration. In some way, commemorate it by taking one of your 1,400 city properties that aren't being used. This is my information. I don't know how correct it is, but however many properties you have, to be able to put a RV park on it, a trailer park, because the current trailer parks will not accept any trailers over 10 years old, so none of the trailers out there qualify to go there. I heard that a man came by and said he had 9 acres or 6 acres, and he was just going to charge $900. So people are willing to work cooperatively to contribute money to have Honey Bucket come and service, to have garbage service, and to have a place, a safe place without threats from the police, a safe place to build community, even if it's just in over 10-year-old RVs. Right now, the city of Santa Rosa has no place for people to go, and they're just being shuffled around. Catholic Charities was out there a couple of times, I heard, but they didn't really have anything to offer the people, because what the people want is some place to park their RV or trailer, and they don't mind if there's rules or some sort of cooperation required. We believe that this is cruel and unusual punishment, to be moving people along places when there's nowhere for people to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yanes. Thomas Els, followed by John Vincent.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm glad you're here this evening. I want to talk about two things. One is Journey's End and the other Apollo Way. I met someone from Journey's End, and apparently the owner is not going to rebuild. There's some controversy. I don't know exactly what the situation is, but there are those 40 trailers. People are out of those, and not everyone is being helped. I know that some of the people are being helped by the owner of Journey's End, and put in apartments elsewhere, and some people are not and have to pay out of their own pocket. And you may have read in the newspaper that people are not able to get settlements and things. The gentleman who put out the fire to prevent the mobile homes from burning is now thinking, why did I do that? I should have let them burn. Wow. In Apollo Way, maybe we can accelerate the discussion of the Bennett Valley Senior Center. I think that's what it's called, right over here, and put those trailers onto that site. It's going to close. People are moving over to Finley. Finley's open. It's plenty of room there. That facility's been there for years. It's really great. The person wing and everything is really fantastic. It's all great. If everybody's over there, that's empty. There's plenty of room for these trailers, so they don't have to be evicted. They would gladly go over to Bennett Valley. You don't have to have Keith Woods and everybody up in arms, and they would gladly go to Bennett Valley Senior Center. So having any place would be far better than where they are, and for them, let alone all the rest of the community. So I would ask you to accelerate that discussion, and please bring that to the council, and before you do a HEAP event on Apollo Way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. John Vincent, followed by Mark Holtz.
Yeah, I'm John Vincent. I had a home. I had too many homeless people there. Some of them were dealing drugs, and the city closed my house down. Right now, I've got 3 sets of people living in 3 vehicles. I've helped, provided them so that they would at least have a vehicle to, stay in. I'm 74 years old. I've had chronic fatigue syndrome for 45 years, and I know I'm coming to the end of the road of life for myself. I've been parking on Capricorn, out Corporate Center Parkway, and that has just been a real blessing to be able to go there and be comfortable, and also getting to know like Jerry and other people who talk there. They're, you know, really fine, wonderful people. One of the people I've given a van to, every time my house had been closed down, he threatened to become a danger to himself and others. And I, you know, I'm speaking for myself. I know I live at the outer limit of my capacity to function. Fair Housing told me that I could just lock people out. If people were working for rent, that I could tell them to leave and they'd have to leave, but I could not get the police to cooperate on that, and I'm told that I could lock people out. An officer of SR General, the junior college, said I'd be committing a misdemeanor, so he discouraged me from doing that. Anyway, I just want a place to be able to relax, kick back, get the rest I need, which is way more than an ordinary human being needs. And not to bother anyone, and I understand that if I'm in someone else's space, it is my responsibility to make them happy, or at least not unhappy that I'm there. So I always clean up after my mess, and I empty my pee bottles at in one of the parks, with the bathroom, and you know.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holtz?
Yes. Good evening. I'm sorry that I have to bring this subject up due to the fact that we're dealing with the homeless and all that, and I know that it's a situation that is dear to my heart. But I'm here for a reason outside of that, and that is the beautification of our city. Our city right now, if you were to drive up and down the roads, and please, all the people that are homeless and that we're talking, forgive me for bringing this up, but this is a subject that I've been trying to work on since the fires. If you were to drive around this city, every single meridian, and I'm sure you people know what meridians are, they're center dividers, are filled with weeds. There's weeds on Stony Point that are 6 foot tall across the street from the maintenance yard. I called Department of Parks and Recreation, I spoke to their managers. They told me that they're the ones who are responsible for the weeding, there's scheduling, there's this, there's that. However, there's no money, or there's not enough money in the budget that's given to them. They have 3 men working right now with 1 truck. They have 7 positions open that have not been hired yet. The trash in this city is overwhelming. Go into Windsor, you don't see any trash, you don't see weeds, okay? Go any of these streets, go up Brookwood, go all the way down from Farmers Lane, all the way down to Santa Rosa Avenue. You can't even walk on the sidewalks. I have been arguing, the wrong word. I have been talking in regards to this issue for a number of months. I know we had a fire. I know everything's more important, but this city is starting to look like a piece of junk. And then you sit and you have people that want to bring in businesses. You spend $45,000 on an artisan thing to see if you want to bring an artisan community in here, but you go on your roads. Go get in your car and go buy gas at the Argo station and look at all the weeds. You can't even see a place to play. What we need is more money given to the Parks and Recreation so they can hire, okay? There are avenues that we can go, and I'm gonna bring this up. What about the marijuana tax? That's bringing in a lot of money, but you're not collecting the tax yet, which could help this city drastically. It's time you wake up, and I'm saying not just you people, but the city has to wake up. We need to come together or we're gonna destroy ourselves. If these weeds break up the meridians, what costs more? Getting rid of the weeds now or putting in a new meridian? Think about it. Think about how beautiful this city used to be 20 years ago. Now look at it. I'm embarrassed to say that I'm from this city. When I go and I teach at Windsor at the middle school up there and I drive to that school, there's not a weed on the ground. I implore you, or employer, or whatever the word is, excuse me, to please do something about this. Help Parks and Recreation and the fire department. I'm not just talking about the cleanup from the fires, et cetera. We're doing a great job on that. I'm talking about our infrastructure in our city. Our city looks terrible. And again, I'm sorry for bringing it up now, but this has been a pet project of mine. I hope we can do something about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holtz. So that is our 10th card for the first public comment. We will now go to item 14.1. Mr. McGlynn.
Item 14.1, public hearing, resolution forming the Santa Rosa Downtown Community Benefit District and levying the assessment in connection therewith. Raisa De La Rosa, Economic Development Manager, presenting.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor Rogers and members of the council. I'd also like to introduce our assessment district consultant, Marco Lamandri, with New City America, without whom this would have been a very, very different process. So the Community Benefit District, or CBD, resolution of formation you're considering tonight is the final step in the potential formation of our first assessment district under the new CBD ordinance that you passed in March of this year. So while it's only been 4 months since the addition of the language into the code enabling this new form of assessment district, I will say that the city and the Downtown Action Organization has been planning, discussing, and preparing for this moment for just about a year now. The first critical test to this came in May when property owners representing at least 30% of the total assessments in the area needed to submit signed petitions in order for the resolution of intention to move forward, which would then trigger the ballot process. Clearly, because we're here tonight, this threshold was met, and 118 ballots were mailed out to property owners of the 159 parcels within the district. So the district is comprised of about 25 square blocks from Morgan Street to E Street and from First Street to 7th Street, and has 4 distinct benefit zones. The parcel assessments are proportionate to the special benefits derived by each parcel and are in relation to the entirety of the district and which zone the parcel is in. So there are 5 factors that are considered for the assessment, with tiered rates descending from the locations in the core of the district, the green areas, and then going out to the perimeter, the white areas. The factors of consideration for assessment are linear frontage, lot size, building square footage, excluding tenant parking areas and affordable housing units, city-owned parking spaces that are open to the public, as well as future commercial or residential units that will hopefully be built within the district. So it's important to note that special benefits funded by the district will not replace city-funded general benefits. So very specifically, special benefits to parcel owners are through this assessment are over and above general benefits that the city currently provides. And looking at the budget breakdown, 82.5% of the annual budget will be dedicated to programming, with the bulk of that going to sidewalk operations, which is beautification, safety, maintenance, that type of thing. So in terms of the ballot process, once again, we're looking at a weighted tabulation system where the weight of the ballot is determined by the amount each property owner will be paying. Unlike the petition process where we had a 30% threshold to meet, the ballots tabulated, the vote is simply counted from the ballots that are returned tonight. So there was not a percentage threshold that we're looking for. At the close of the public hearing, staff, including the city clerk and assistant city attorney, will go to room 7 here in City Hall, where we'll tabulate the ballots. So should any property owner be present tonight who has not yet submitted a ballot, and we do have duplicate ballots available and they can do so tonight. And likewise, if there is a property owner present who would like to withdraw their ballot, they can also do so tonight. The tabulation process is open to the public, but so anyone who wants to see it, they're welcome to come to room 7 to witness the proceedings, but I would like to say that we ask that the room is silent so that we can clearly hear the tabulations be called. If anyone has any questions when they come to witness the process, Mr. Lamandry and I will be available to answer those questions. All ballots will be considered, and if there are any questions about a ballot or the intention of a ballot, if there's an unclear marking or question of the validity of the ballot will be given to the city clerk and the city attorney, and a ruling for interpretation of that ballot will happen at that time. When the ballot tabulation is complete, the city clerk will report the results, and council can then take action on the motion. So it is recommended by the Planning and Economic Development Department that the council hold a public hearing to consider oral and written testimony regarding the formation of a community benefit improvement district and tabulate all assessment ballots returned to the city pursuant to procedures set forth in the resolution of intention. And if the assessment balloting does not result in a majority protest, then approve the resolution forming the Santa Rosa Downtown Community Benefit District and levying and collecting of the tax of the assessments in connection therewith. And Mr. Lamandry and I are here to take questions.
Thank you so much. Councilor, are there any questions? All right, then as was stated, I will open the public hearing. Anybody who would like to speak on the item, but first I will read: all voted ballots must be submitted to the city clerk prior to the conclusion of the public hearing. Upon the conclusion of the public hearing, no further ballots will be accepted. Only affected property owners were issued ballots. Owners requiring a replacement ballot or wishing to withdraw their vote, please see the clerk in room 7. Members of the public are invited to observe the ballot tabulation process. The directional signs are posted outside of the council chamber. I'm told that we do use paper ballots so the Russians can't interfere. And with that, we will go and open the public hearing. Sue Cade, followed by Thomas Els.
Thank you very much. My name is Sue Cade. My husband Rick and I own Lavera Pizza, and we also own the building that our restaurant is housed in. I'm here today to just encourage anybody who has not voted to vote in favor of the CBD. The city has put in a lot of money in revitalizing, reunifying Courthouse Square. It is now time for the building property owners to put some money behind our streets. Our cityscape is in dire need of beautification, and our light poles and that sort of thing. We just need the extra money so that we can put on events and beautify downtown and make it just a vibrant area for people to be coming again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sue. Thomas Els.
Well, I had, thank you for having a discussion of this ballot measure, if you will. I just had 2 questions. Maybe the first one was answered by the slide that we looked at. It had 4 items on it. I wasn't able to see everything there. What is the benefit from the district? And a lot of it was sidewalks. Wasn't exactly clear what some of the other things were from what the original measure was, establishing the potential for districts, one of which was advertising and some other things like that. I didn't see that in this slide. The second question was, is the tabulation after the weighting of the ballots or tabulation before the weighting of the ballots? Because it was a simple majority, but it's not clear. I know there was a weighting. It said it was a simple majority, but is that after the weighting of the ballots by the assessed valuation, or is that before the weighting? And I'll leave that to staff if you want. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. Ells. If we could put back up that slide of where the funds will be expended. And this is a public hearing. Is there anybody else who would wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, we will come, go ahead, Mr. Holtz.
I'm not aware of any of this that's going on. I've walked in on another issue, but I'm looking at $350,000 for sidewalk operations and city sidewalks. Okay, now to me that figure's up there now, but what about everything that I just discussed a few minutes ago that's going on with our sidewalks and everything? You're talking one area, but the rest of the city's falling apart. That's what I don't understand. Why don't we deal with the city as a whole, rather than dealing with section? If I see $350,000 going into that section, and I saw you throw away $45,000 to see if we can get an artisan community in here, but we can't get rid of 6-foot-high weeds, we got to do something because the city's really falling apart. And you're bringing in more and more stuff. It's not going to work. It's not going to work unless you do it right and you maintain it. You have to maintain the city. You have to spend money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holtz. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? All right. Votes will be tabulated in room 7, just down the walkway there. We will close the public hearing, and we will come back with the tabulation after item 13.1.
Would you like to let staff answer? No. Oops. Oops. All right. 13.1. I think I know this.
Item 13.1, report approval of amendment number 1 to Ernst & Young agreement. Neil Bregman, emergency preparedness coordinator, presenting.
Good afternoon. So hi, Neil Bregman, emergency manager. And here with me from EY is Steve Krall. I'm gonna kind of give you the broad overview, but as far as getting into the details, Steve's actually gonna do most of that, given that EY is really assisting us with the real work here. So Ernst & Young was brought in through an RFP process to help city staff deal with 2 sort of major workloads that resulted from the fires. And those are first known as the FEMA Public Assistance Program, where we work with FEMA on giving them documentation and saying, here was the work we did that under this program you will reimburse us for, or here was damage to city-owned infrastructure. And again, giving them the proper documentation for FEMA to hopefully reimburse us or help us with the costs related to those things. And then the second piece is there's the, as it's known, the 404 Hazard Mitigation Grant Project. And we are at the point where we have sort of put forward projects, and FEMA has said those are great ideas. They're within the project scope, and now we're doing larger, fuller applications, and we'll put those forward and see what the state and FEMA has to say. On the first part here, we've already gone through on the public assistance. We've done a project kickoff. We're neck deep in phase 2 of what's called project formulation and submitting worksheets to FEMA, where for each project you say, here's the damage, let's talk about what that exactly looks like, and they create something called a project worksheet, which eventually the city will say, yes, you kind of got it right, FEMA, we'll agree to it, now let's kind of figure out what the dollar figure is here and hopefully be able to submit and get reimbursed for it. And we'll talk about the phases that are after that, but that's the main phase we're in right now, is that project worksheet formulation. We're almost at the end of supplying FEMA with Ernst & Young's help with all the documentation they need. And as far as where we are, Ernst & Young's been with us doing significant help with city staff for a large amount of time, and what we're here today asking for is more or less based upon where we are and what council has already approved. In order for Ernst & Young to help us move to the end of this process and hopefully get reimbursement for a lot of the things we've done from FEMA, we need to extend and amend their contract for a larger dollar figure. But I'm gonna turn over to Steve so you can kind of go through the work we are. Okay.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present in front of you today. I'm Steve Kroll with Ernst & Young, and just to continue on, and Neil covered a large portion of it, we're focused on two pots of funds currently in order to assist the city in reimbursement from FEMA. The first one being the public assistance projects, which are referred to as 406 projects, and also 404 mitigation projects. The presentation today will give you an update on the project status for the public assistance projects and the amount of funding in the different categories that FEMA is currently evaluating, and also the 404 mitigation projects. Under the public assistance projects, actually, since this presentation was created, we've had other discussions with FEMA. We are currently looking at a total of 31 projects. 2 of the projects that were there have been combined into other projects, so you're looking at a total of 31 projects for a potential of $95 million estimate. I caution you on the $95 million that this is just an estimate. Going forward, working with FEMA is a very dynamic process, and in turn, these numbers change. They sometimes change daily. So it's broken down into categories A through G, as you can see there, and the different figures associated with those categories, and also category Z, which is the direct administrative cost. A majority of EY's costs are built into those direct administration costs, not all, but a majority is, and so a majority of the work that we do is reimbursed directly by FEMA. In turn, under the public, actually slides 7 through 9 talk about a process, and a lot of this information is FEMA verbiage, so I'd like to just briefly give you an overview. As Neil had alluded to, we talk about a process of understanding the damage and putting in that damage into the FEMA portal. We have already done that for all of the projects going forward. The next is to actually put in the documentation that actually supports those damage estimates to FEMA. FEMA has actually given us a deadline, which was as of June 29th, to get all that information into that portal. We have met that deadline at this time. There's one particular project that we're working on to get additional information into the portal, and we've been given additional time by FEMA to do so. The next one is the actual development of the project worksheets, which Neil alluded to. Here, FEMA is currently looking at all of that information and looking at the estimates that we have put in, and we will go through a back and forth process with them, with the city, in order to basically ratify those estimates going forward, to give you or go forward into the 4th step, which is project closeout, so the city can be reimbursed for all of the funding. To date, you'll see that we have approximately 3 to 5 individuals on site with you, located in the TPW building. We work on a daily basis. We're integrated into the teams here. We host multiple meetings with the city in order to make sure that these deadlines that FEMA has presented to us are being met, and we're also providing all the information going forward that FEMA has required. Some of the challenges that we have faced with FEMA is also, they are talking about emergency time and expense tracking system here for the city, time that was spent working on the disaster, so we're working with the city in order to duplicate those costs, getting it into a format that can be presented to FEMA. This is also your first presidential declared disaster, and working in order to not only go through the process.
And I hope the last.
Getting the proper documentation, but also making sure that we are working with your city staff so that they're aware of each and every step that we're taking moving forward with you all. And also to make sure that there's transparency within the process, within the city, as well as making sure that any of those decisions coming back from FEMA are interpreted for the city staff so we can move forward with reimbursement.
And I'll give you an example of some of the work that EY has done, and for example, in the, being able to do research on how volunteer hours can be calculated as a reimbursable. Staff, frankly, would not be able to do that work because that required looking at programs submitted in other regions and what was acceptable. Those are the things that just would not be possible without the assistance of the consultant team to be able to look at a problem, identify what other regions have done to address those issues, and maximize the return dollars that could be brought back to the city. And that's just an example of one thing that they brought to the table, of concrete analysis on how you calculate volunteer hours as a reimbursable percentage of your overall, as your match in the equation for FEMA reimbursement.
Another particular example that we're currently working on is that you have increased construction cost here in the state of California, and in turn, when doing the comparison, when FEMA comes back with a comparative analysis of what it should cost to rebuild particular infrastructure, we're doing that other analysis on the back end to show that there will be significant increased cost in the state of California to basically rebuild that infrastructure.
And the reason that's important is that that'll impact the amount of money that's advanced against the project, which again can slow down reconstruction. If they're advancing us based on price estimates coming out of South Florida for construction, we'll only get a fraction of the dollars to address infrastructure needs up front, which could stymie our ability to complete a project. So that's incredibly important work to make sure that we're having the accurate price assessment, because frankly what FEMA does is they look nationally about the last project of similar scale that they did somewhere else and say that's the price it should be. And so that's again another concrete example of how the work that the EY team is providing us that we would just not have the capacity to do.
Thank you. Then going to the 404 projects, as Neil was discussing earlier, we currently have a total of 9 NOIs, notice of intent, that has been approved by FEMA. We are now in the midst of developing the applications for those 9 projects, estimated at approximately $29 million. In turn, out of those 9, 2 have already been submitted. Those applications were submitted as of July 2nd. The other 7 are actually due on September 4th, and we're working with city staff in order to develop those and get those submitted in time.
And there will, the Transportation and Public Works Department Director Nutt is scheduling an August meeting to review those projects in detail with the council.
Here is just a quick list of what those 9 projects entail and the dollars associated with those 9. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor, are there any questions? Mr. McGlynn, I know when we talk about the local match, there's depending on which category we fall into and what FEMA has approved or hasn't approved, changes what we are looking at as a city. How are we doing in terms of making sure we have the dollars so that we don't stymie the recovery? And I know that there are some options from the state that perhaps you can talk about in terms of loans.
Well, we're looking at that action, and one of the things that we'll be bringing forward is actually a federal loan as well. There's an emergency loan that if you have so much hit in your revenue side, there's about $5 million you can access from the feds, and we'll be bringing that forward. It does have a fairly robust forgiveness rate down the line. But we will be bringing those opportunities to council, and we are looking at all those opportunities to make sure we have enough cash in hand to advance projects.
And when should we start to hear, as we see 2 projects that have been approved there by FEMA, when should we actually start to see some of that come back to the council for us to locate those dollars?
So one of the things is we're going to be bringing this in August so that we can start identifying resources if we need resources. And I said we're looking for other resources to create that match. Some of those projects are in the water utilities budget. The BPU will be entertaining the match requirements through their budget as well.
Great, thank you so much. I have one card on this, Thomas Ells. Thomas, we got to get you just one with a checkbox for all of the items that you want to speak on. Save some paper.
Thank you.
Oh, great. Do we have any other cards? Nope. All right, Councilmember Combs.
I want to thank staff before I read this on the hard work that I know this is. I appreciate that we have a consultant who is helping, but I also know that it requires a lot of work from our staff to assist to get the information together that we have to get together. This is a heavy lift. Sometimes it seems as if, as maybe was made reference earlier, that another municipality might be doing something faster than we're doing it, but they're not doing this too. And I want to let staff know I really appreciate this. Resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving the First Amendment to Professional Services Agreement number F001625 with Ernst & Young LLP, San Francisco, California, to provide disaster recovery management services, and waive further reading of the text.
Your votes? And that passes with 5 ayes. Thank you. So we have 2 items of written communications, the Miller Village subdivision and Auberge des Soleil. 2? Thank you, des Soleil. I obviously did not take French. We are at public comment for any remaining public comment. Do we have any remaining? All right, then we will take a quick recess while we finish the tabulation of the votes. There's one more card? Oh.
If he's already spoken, he can't speak again.
It's okay. Kathleen Winston? I apologize if I butchered that.
I'm also with I'm with the Homeless Action Group. I park over on Apollo Way by the county Lakes Job Link Cal Jobs building. I'm 68 years old. I live in my car. I have Social Security, but it's not enough. I'm on the waiting list for Burbank low-income senior housing, but that's years long. I'm looking for a job every day. I go in Job Link, but I'm not getting hired because I was told by Goodwill, that little tiny store in Rohnert Park, that I don't look physically fit enough to pick t-shirts up off the floor in that little tiny store. Yeah. So I keep applying. I took care of my mom and my sister for 10 years. My mom had Alzheimer's and my sister had COPD. Now they both passed away. I lost my mom's house, so that's why I'm homeless now, and I'm trying to work. I was on the waiting list for Vintage Park, but I had a job for 3 months, but when I lost that job, they dropped me off of that list because I don't have enough income. Anyway, my problem is I need a place to live, and while I wait for low-income housing, while I try to find a job, I have to live in my car. So I need a place to park. So I just want you to think about that because I'm over there on Apollo Way with the RVs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathleen. All right, now we'll take a brief recess. Council, I ask that you don't go too far. We need to maintain a quorum in order to announce the final vote. So with 80.3% of the votes cast in favor of the Community Benefits District, there was not a majority protest, meaning that the ballots cast in opposition to the establishment do not exceed those cast in favor when weighted by dollar amount. Council may now act to adopt the resolution establishing the downtown Santa Rosa Community Benefit District and the levy of assessments on properties within the district. Councilmember Olivares, I believe this is your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I will move a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa forming the Santa Rosa Downtown Community Benefit District and levying the assessment in connection therewith, and waive further reading of the text.
Second.
Council, your votes. That passes with 5 ayes. Thank you very much, and we are now adjourned.